Okay, part 2. Today we'll be installing the ELRS Rx receiver to the flight controller, and yeah, let's just do that. First things first, you need to know which pad you're soldering to and what pad you're not soldering to, because if you don't solder the wires to the correct pad, and things go wrong. Alright, so what I've done is I pulled up a wiring diagram of the flight controller that is on board my NAZGUL5 V2 right here. And basically, as you can see, there is a bunch of pads here, all labeled in gold. On the flight controller, you'll see there's a lot of letters here that represent various different things. So one of them will be 5 volts, which is what we'll be soldering to, and then different R1s, T1s. So what we're doing today is the ELRS receiver. So we will be soldering a power wire to a 5 volt here. Either way, there's a lot of flexibility when you're soldering stuff, as the pads on the board are really flexible. But for our purposes, to keep it basic, we're just going to be using the bottom here, because that's what is the closest to the end where we will be putting our antenna on the back here. Okay, so we will be using this 5 volt pad, and then this R2 and T2. Those are the oh, and also the ground, which is the G, we'll be using that as well. Those are the 4 pads that we will be soldering to, in addition to soldering the wires to the actual receiver. The board inside, we also have to solder wires to that. So we're basically bridging a connection between this board and the flight controller, and that's what we're going to be doing. Okay, so first things first, I think we need to disassemble the NAZGUL5, as we need to pull off all the components we're not using, as this is the analog version. The components that I'm not using would be the analog camera, so here the VTX, which is the analog video transmission, this big block in the back, we need to pull that off, and any other wires that we don't need, that don't convert over to the digital edition of this. So first things first, let's just pull off all these propellers, because we don't need those just get in the way for now. Okay, and we can take off the stickers as well, because once we plug into Betaflight at the part 4, or when we make sure everything's we do a bolt check and all that, we can make sure of the orientation at that time. We can take these off, so don't need these anymore. Okay, so we can also take off the battery strap, as that's only going to get in our way. So right now we're just removing a lot of stuff that we don't need at this process, so like stickers, straps, whatever stuff that we don't need comes off. I'm pretty sure these are 2.2 millimeters. So we're just going to take off all the screws right now. So the top screws are here. Okay, so we're back. We got a little screw tray, so then we can put all the screws in, just so that we don't lose anything. So these will go in this little box. Of course it's not on camera, but it's right here. This is the screw tray. Nothing fancy, but it's gonna work. GoPro mount comes off really easily. So with that, the top plate should be free. There we go. So what we're working with is, the top part is your flight controller, the bottom part is your ESC. ESC is basically your motor management kind of thing. It manages all the how fast your motors spin and things like that. Your flight controller is basically your motherboard, so it controls the camera, it controls how much power goes where, and all that. Basically, the flight controller communicates with the ESC to properly manage the motors, and so on and so forth. Right now, we are going to take this camera module out. Oh, it's really stuck. Oh, there you go. Okay, so just like that. Oh, of course, there's screws. Alright, so this should be a smaller screw set, so probably 1.5. So we're taking off the analog antenna right now, as we won't need that. Okay, so that should be free. There you go. So we don't need this analog system here, so we can take that off too. Okay, so while I'm taking these out and organizing my screws so I don't get mixed up, leave a comment how are you liking this series. I'm coming to like these build series as, I don't know, it's a way to really do something different, and I don't usually build stuff like this, so like short of building Legos when I was a kid, that this is like the only other things I've ever built. And now the VTX is out. Okay, so we'll flip this back over. So the VTX is connected to using these connectors here, so we'll just pop those connectors out. Okay, so now that we got our tweezers, we can take this plug out. So the VTX is out. There you go. This is the VTX itself. It's part of the analog system that we won't be using. So if you guys want it, it's going to be on sale. I'm going to put it on Facebook, eBay, whatever. You guys can find the links below. Oh, there you go. So one of the wires came out, so we can get rid of that. So that will be combined with that. I'm not sure what this one is for, but we'll take it out as well. As everything that we have that we need is already inside the boxes of the other components. So like the ELRS receiver has its own wiring, the Racecam WASP has its own wiring, so we don't need any of that. Not sure what these cables are for, but we won't need those. Now let's take out the Racecam, which is the analog camera that's already inside, as we won't be needing that either. Okay, so the plates come out really easily. We'll just set those aside. We'll be using these plates to mount the Racecam WASP, so we need to retain those. But this Racecam camera, we're not keeping, so we can get rid of this. Okay, so that's the analog camera out and the analog VTX out as well. Okay, so with everything relatively stripped off of the analog system, we can now put the Nazgul aside, as everything that's still on the quad is what we need for the digital system. Now we can start on the ELRS soldering, which is what you're here for. So the ELRS Rx receiver comes with your RX receiver module, which is this one. It also comes with your wiring diagram, which is going to be handy. It also gives us the wires that we need. So we got a red, black, white, and yellow. So matching the wiring diagram like this, we can see that the section that's at the top is ground, VCC, which is power, is in the right below it, TX and RX. So one of the things that the FPV Discord that I've been talking to people with, they just made sure to let me know your TX wire from this receiver should be on the RX on your flight control. So that's why we're going to be careful to not forget that, and essentially we're just going to start soldering. And normally you're supposed to have like a wire trimmer or whatever, but for this purposes we don't. So I'm just going to use my fingernails, which is really easy. You just pinch them and then it should come off. So now we'll be soldering the RX for the ELRS. So first things first, we'll take the black wire. Alright, so we'll just thread it into the portion right here and make a little bend. And then we will start the soldering iron. It should be at 330 degrees. So far we got the black wire on the ground, which is the top port right here. So we just kind of pinned it so that it can kind of hold itself in there while we solder it in. Is this hot enough yet? Oh, feels hot. I think it's good to go. So first things first, we're going to take a little bit of tin and we're going to heat it up on the end of the iron. There you go. And now we will put some of the solder on there. There you go. Now we'll continue and do the rest. Now we'll just solder that in. Okay. Oof. All right. Okay. I think that's good. So the black wire here that I'm pulling right now that you can't see, there you go. The black wire here is the ground. Red is your power, so that's this one, right? White is your TX, I believe, and then yes, your TX. White is your TX, and yellow is your RX. We're gonna be soldering to the back half of it right here, and we got our freshly soldered RX receiver for ELRS. We're gonna try to use, so we're gonna use red for the 5-volt pad, which is on this side. Red will be here. White will be ground, which is right underneath. Our white is our TX, which will need to go to R2, which is the top here, right there, and a yellow will be right underneath. So it'll be kind of like a Y shape out like this on the board, but that should give us the best bet as when we install the Racecam WAS, which is going really forward. We will need to use the 9-volt on this side, the ground here, and R1 and T1 here. So we'll keep it on one side. Oh, actually we can do this. So we can do it, instead of having it splayed out like that, we can, there's a ground right underneath the 5-volt pad here, so we can kind of keep it more concise, so we can do that. It'll just be tighter soldering, but either way, it will work. So we'll do this. So let's just solder this to there and call it a day. Set it aside while it heats up. We're just going to prepare each thing. So we're going to do that. I'm going to use these center pads for all of them. It's going to be tight, but this should be all right. So ground should be right underneath 5-volt ground. Right here. So that should be ground. So we'll put some flux, and then once it's hot enough, we'll just keep soldering away. So we got some flux here. Oh, that's kind of sticky. Okay, now we know. Don't put your hands in it, but okay. We'll just take a little bit here, and put on the pads that we'll be soldering to. So we'll be soldering to R2. And the ground right beneath, and then wait one sec. Yeah, and then the 5-volt and the ground right underneath. There we go. Hard enough yet? Yep, hard enough. Okay, so clean the tip again. Tin this a little bit. There we go. We'll solder black. There we go. There we go. So we're just making beads on there so we can solder much easier. Ooh, it's getting pretty toasty. So we'll make another bead on the 5 volt. There you go. And the TX. There you go. And there as well. There. Not the best, but it'll work. Okay, now we'll solder the ground to the ground, power to power, etc., etc. So we can clean this off first. Put some more of that on there. Black to ground. There you go. Red to 5 volt. Oh, I missed it. There you go. And then TX is white, should go to R2. So TX should go to R, which is the top one. Oh, toasty again. Okay, so white goes to the top. Actually, give me a second. There you go. So that's white. Ooh, that's getting really hot. And then last but not least, yellow should go to, yellow is our RX, yes? That should go to T2. Tight fit, but we'll get in there. Nope, nope. There you go. There we go. That is how we solder the ELRS antenna, which is this thing, to a NAZGUL5 V2 flight controller. So that's that. I gotta figure out a mounting solution. I might just put the antenna out the back like this, or I might print another TPU part and, I don't know, come up with a more fancier way of putting this in, because at the moment this might not work. It'll be just dangling like this, and then there'll be props spinning here. It might cut it, I don't know. So that's it for part 2, which was the ELRS installation. Binding the ELRS module to the controller will be in part 4 or 5, whichever one I have pre-made in flight. That's when I'm going to flash this so I can connect it to my remote control, but for now it's just the soldering of this, and that should be good. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed. Leave a like below if you found this helpful, as I've been searching the internet to see if anyone's done a analog to digital conversion for this drone specifically, which is the NAZGUL5 V2, and I have not come across a video where somebody has done this, so hopefully this helps you convert your NAZGUL5 V2 to digital if you are trying to attempt to do it. In the next part, we'll be connecting the Racecam Wasp with its attached Vista to this so that we can have some FPV camera goodness, and that's it. Alright, so thanks for watching. See you next part. Ooh, that was a long one. Okay, so that's that.